What is Nashville's biggest issue right now besides team frustration? Well, we asked and you answered. Let's discuss.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are, of course, your free daily Nashville Predators podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to kick off this Wednesday, this game day episode with a welcome to any first-time listeners, and of course, with a very hearty shout out to our everydayers and to our Locked On Predators insiders. We appreciate your support, and we do love talking Nashville Predators hockey with you. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer with Penalty Box Radio, and my friends, I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Emma Lingen, and I'm the Predators site editor and reporter for the Hockey News.
Well, Emma and I asked, and y'all answered. We reached out to our Locked On Predators insider community, and we just wanted to gauge, what are you seeing on the ice that you think is causing this team trouble? And we also asked them to share their confidence level in this team this season. We're going to tell you what they had to say, and Emma and I are going to tell you if we agree with them or not. Plus, Predators back on the ice tonight in Washington. They're going to take on Alex Ovechkin and the Capitals. We're going to preview that game as well. Before we dive into all of these topics, do want to let you know that this episode's brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Emma, we asked the question. Sometimes we give the answers, but this time we reached out to our great Locked On Predators insider community. And this is a subtext community. Anybody is welcome to join. And it's just sort of where we go to converse post podcast about what we're seeing in games, before games, after games. And we asked our subtext community, our insiders, we're like, okay, what are you seeing that makes you think this is this is part of what the Predators problem is right now? And I love that they give us lots of perspective and answers. So we're just going to go through some of their answers and discuss. Want to start it with John. John started with a great question, and I think this is something that we definitely need to talk through. John said, how much blame for the lack of scoring on 5-on-5 is on the forwards, and how much is on the D-men? I've been blaming the forwards for the lack of production, but I wonder if the D-men are also to blame. And look, John is dead on. 5-on-5 production, not terrific with the Nashville Predators right now. So, Emma, when you look at this big picture, where does some of the responsibility fall? Does it fall on the defensemen as well?
It falls everywhere.
It
falls everywhere. And I think the thing when things are going poorly for the Nashville Predators or any team, fans really like to pick a lightning rod of hate. They like to pick a problem. They
like to introduce you to Cole Smith 2 seasons ago.
Yes. They like to pick one person, whether it's one person or one position or one element, one thing to blame, or to put most of the blame on. And that's not what's happening here. That's actually the problem, is that it's everybody. There isn't just one thing that needs to be fixed or one thing that's going wrong. I thought it was interesting when we talked to the guys from Locked On Avalanche on Monday about, both of these teams have gotten off to slow starts, but for very different reasons. And for the Avalanche, it's a much more, it's at least from my perspective, much easier to pinpoint what their issue is and why they've gotten off to a bad start. And it's the goaltending and it's all these guys who were injured. It's okay, Got it.
Easy math.
The Predators, nothing is working. And that's the problem, is that they're not working together as a unit. And we've heard the guys say this. I know Roman Yossi said it. I don't remember which game it was, but he said that after a game, that we're not working as a 5-man unit, and they don't have that trust in each other to play the system as a 5-man unit. And so I think that maybe it might sound like a cop-out answer, but it's really not. It's a way of saying that the blame falls on everyone here.
Mhm. And I do think one thing that we haven't seen a lot of so far this season that we did see when the Predators were successful last season is some of the defensemen kicking off, some breakout opportunities for the Predators. We really have not seen a lot of 2-on-1s. We have not seen a lot of breakaway chances for this team like they had last year. And I do think some of that is kind of on the defensemen. But I agree with you. I think it's not even so much the forwards or the defensemen, it's this 5-man unit on the ice. And then this 5-man unit on the ice. And then this 5-man unit. John, there is a plenty of blame to go around. And it's definitely something they have to fix. That 5-on-5 scoring, they've got to have that. So yes, that is definitely a concern. Chris said one of the things that concerns him most is getting behind in almost every game. Yeah, look, it is great that the Predators were able to come from behind 2 goals down in some games, but that is no way to earn your way into the postseason. And you cannot count on doing that. Great skill set to have, but certainly not the skill set that is going to get you moving up in the standings. And as we saw, they don't always come back from 2 games down. I think it goes back, Emma, to just the starts. Nashville they just don't have good starts.
No, they don't. Good starts to games, good starts to periods. I mean, good start to the season. Like, I think we're just kind of seeing that it's the lack of consistency, and it's much harder to play from behind. And like you said, it's a nice skill to have should you need it, but ideally you don't need it. And that's kind of what we're seeing here, is that, again, none of these wins, in my opinion, have felt like, even I keep looking at the shutout of Boston. Final score 4-0. I mean, it's essentially a blowout. Like, and I just felt like watching it didn't feel like a blowout. And it was the first time, though, that they had a lead, that the Predators had a lead all season at that point, and were able to get a 2-goal lead, 3-goal, 4-goal. But even then, it just felt like a struggle. It just does not feel like the goals are coming easily. And I think that that's just as much, going to tie this back to the first question, I think that's just as much on the offense for not producing as it is on the defense for, allowing those and when I say defense, I don't even necessarily just mean the defensemen. I just mean like the overall defensive play by all 5 men on the ice.
If you look at the wins that Nashville has gotten, they've all been a little underwhelming. And I get that you're going to have underwhelming wins. You don't need to have big, glorious, glamorous wins, but so underwhelming.
It's so frustrating because it's like you want to take the moral victory of like it's sad when even an actual win feels like a moral victory for this team. It's like, hey, we got the 2 points, and it's frustrating because you, like you said, they haven't felt dominant. They haven't felt sure of themselves. When they have won, it's felt like more of a, well, we've found a way, or like, well, that was lucky. And it's like, it's good. You need those every once in a while, but not for every single time you win. And I don't think from start to finish that we've seen a solid performance in any of this first stretch of games.
Yes, I would agree. I don't think there's one game yet that you can hang your hat on and say, okay, there it is.
Yeah.
There's the team that's going to make a postseason run. We just have not seen that team yet. It's getting to be about that time, y'all. Of course, in the game against LA, Nashville only recorded 16 shots on goal. So, how big of a problem is shot chance for Nashville right now? We're going to talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's the way daily fantasy sports should be played. It's not you against 1,000 strangers. It's just you against the PrizePicks projections for your favorite players in your favorite sports. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can withdraw your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Look, we know the Predators are going to lean big time on UC Saros to protect the net, so why not include a more pick on Saros saves as the hockey season rolls on? Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So check out all the action at PrizePicks. Run your game. Emma, several of our insiders really shared kind of the same message, kind of the same vibe that they're getting from this team. Corey said, nothing this team does looks like it feels natural to them. You can see them thinking, my instinct says to do A, but the coaches expect me to do B, so let me figure out how to do B. Another insider said the team lacks an identity. Last season, the team played hard and fast, no matter the opposition. You knew what you would get every time they stepped on the ice. This team, on the other hand, looks slow and lacks cohesion. And I think that's one of the most baffling things. And I will say it's baffling for you and I because when training camp kicked off, we didn't see that. You know, it was a really good start to training camp, and you felt like they all got how they needed to be playing and how they needed to prepare for it. And got a chance to talk to Tommy Novak after practice yesterday, and he really talked about, you know, the frustration with the team and the corrections they need to make. And he talked about, you know, we've got to get back to playing into the system and being predictable with each other. And I think that goes back to, like we've talked about, Andrew Brunette has said this team has trust issues.
Yeah. And I think, like I said before, it's not just trust in each other, it's trust in themselves. And, you know, when you keep doing things over and over and not getting the results, then yeah, you are going to, you know, start to doubt yourself or doubt your system, your unit, your structure, your whatever it is. And so I think that it's definitely, again, it's a vicious cycle that feels impossible to break out of right now. But I think to that point, this team is too good to be this bad. So I really
Say it
do.
again, girl.
I really do think they will come out of this. I will not pretend to know when. As far as I know, U2 is not coming to Bridgestone Arena anytime soon. So I don't know when it's going to happen. And you know what? Like, we've been preaching patience. Everyone's been preaching patience. This is going to take more patience than I think even you and I expected. And so we thought maybe like, all right, like first 5 or 6 games, we'll figure it out. Well, now here we are. And it's kind of, you know, it, like I said, this team is too good to be this bad. And so when you're talking about instincts versus system or coaching or whatever, eventually those things will find a happy medium and they will be able to coexist. But again, this is a team that it doesn't matter how much skill and how many Stanley Cups and awards and whatever are out there on the ice. They need to figure out how to play together as a unit. And that is where they are still stuck. And I do think they'll get there. But that is kind of the point about, sort of feeling disjointed or not trusting in themselves or trusting the system or whatever it is, because everything just feels so new and so different. Even for the guys who were here last year,
Right.
it's still a very new looking team right now, because yes, you only added 3 guys, but those are 3 guys that are very, key integral pieces to your system. And so like you build an offense around those guys, and when those guys aren't firing, then everybody else starts to think, oh no, it's my fault. What am I doing? I've done something wrong. And when everybody's thinking that, then of course you're going to be disjointed and you're not going to be on your A game, because nothing is working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah. One of the things that I talked to a couple of the players about after practice yesterday was about the fear of almost overcorrecting, where you see, gosh, what we're doing isn't working, and then you can tend to overcorrect. And I love Jonathan Marchessault, straight shooter Jonathan Marchessault, my friends. He said, you have to correct because we're not successful. And I said, is there a worry that you can overcorrect and you're not going to find it? And he said, I honestly don't have an answer for you. It has been a hard start to the year. And I'm like, I know, Jonathan, hang in there, friend. Like, it's going to turn around. Hang in there. We are talking about offense. We're talking about things that the Predators need to do better at 5-on-5. One of our insiders said they don't seem to be working together and too much passing. Not nearly enough shots on goal. From your lips to God's ears. Nashville is 4th in the league when it comes to shots per game. 32.58%. That's 16 shots in a game against LA. Definitely brought that number down, but we're still 4th. But when it comes to actual goals per game, Nashville ranks 29th. They are only averaging 2.42 goals per game. So, yes, there are some games where they're putting a lot of shots on net, but they aren't necessarily where they need to be to clean up rebounds for those second and third chances. And I think that comes back to the slot is not lava. And we heard that at practice yesterday, not word for word. Let me be clear. It wasn't word for word, but like those drills in practice yesterday were all about net front, all about battling net front. And y'all, it was physical. And Andrew Brunette was asked about practice, and he said sometimes the best way to deal with frustration is you work it out. And that's what we saw them do. When you look at what the Predators are trying to generate offensively, Emma, what is your concern level?
Well, like I said, 2 things can be true. It looks atrocious right now.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they will get out of it. But to your point, to Jonathan Marchessault's point, you have to work to get out of it. I'm not saying everybody just wait and everything will eventually sort itself out. Like, no, they have to work to figure it out. But I agree. They're playing. We keep hearing the word perimeter. We keep and it's evident from the eye test too. These guys, it's like they're afraid of the net and they're afraid to get too close, and they're so concerned with, I don't know if it's executing the system correctly or just getting certain shots off from a very specific place. It's just, it looks very timid. It does not look like the team that we're used to from last year. And, we see things again in the game against LA. Both of the goals that they scored, not including their empty netter at the end, those were net front goals. And it's like, we need those. Like those are they're not always pretty, and they're not always going to follow a specific by the book design. But it's like, if you see an opportunity, you have to take it. And I don't have any numbers on this, but straight eye test for me from watching this team, every time there's a missed shot and there's a rebound, I'm like, where are the gold jerseys?
Yes.
Where are they? There's no one there.
Yes.
There's no one there. And so immediately because that's like, to me, that is just an easy, I mean, not easy. It's never easy to score a goal in the NHL, but like that's a opportunity handed to you on a silver platter. The puck's already right there. You've already got the goaltender kind of off his game, and everyone's, got their own assignments. Just pop it in. And it's like, I don't know what, if there's a miscommunication, or if they're too focused on other things or trying to get passes off to each other. I don't know, but it's just like, it's almost like they can't focus on the task at hand. It's like they're too focused on the system and not on the end goal, if that makes sense. No pun intended, goal. But like it's like, wait, why are we doing all of this? Like, okay, I need to be in this position, I need to pass this way, I need to do this and that. Okay, why? What are you trying to do? You're trying to put the puck in the net, and that's what they're not doing. And so it's like, okay, they get one shot off, and then they just, beat it down to the other end of the ice. It's like, no, you're not done yet.
Yes.
You gotta try and finish it. Finish the shot. Finish the chance. And so like they're creating opportunities, but they're just not, they're not finishing on them. And it's you need to see the follow through. And I just don't think we're seeing that.
It's almost like they're playing hot potato and not hockey, because they keep passing it, but they're not shooting it.
Which honestly, I was surprised that fourth in the league feels high to me.
It does feel high. But remember, we did have games that we lost where we had an exorbitant number of shots on goal. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they were high danger chances.
No,
but they were generating. And speaking of kind of generating and creating, Tommy Novak talked about this, and he said, when you're not creating as much as you want to create, that can be really frustrating. It's almost less frustrating if you're getting a bunch of chances and they're not going in, but just for us not to generate as much as we want can be frustrating. And I think that's why the LA game was so maddening.
For sure.
So maddening.
I mean, that's why those guys were as angry as they were after the game. I mean, Ryan O'Reilly out there calling himself pathetic and saying it's one of the worst games of his career. And again, we know Mr. O'Reilly has a tendency to blame himself for a lot of things that aren't necessarily his fault. But it was a different level of frustration and anger you were seeing from these guys. And it's for that reason. It's like it wasn't just like, well, job well done. We tried and, we didn't come out on top. It's like, no, we didn't even try. Like there was no, and again, no disrespect, but LA was not exactly the most fearsome opponent that they could have been facing either. I mean, we talk about Nashville only had 16 shots on goal. They only had 3 in the third period. LA only had 3 in the second period, and Nashville still couldn't get anything going. And it was just like, it is frustrating. That was what made the LA game that loss feel worse than the others. Not just because it was a shutout, but because it was like the effort just didn't even seem there.
Yeah, it was underwhelming in all the wrong ways. Coming up, I'm going to share with you how Jonathan Marchessault, as a veteran, resets after a night like that LA game night. And we're going to talk about the Predators' chance to bounce back tonight. They're going to face the Washington Capitals. We're going to tell you some keys to that game. This episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it is all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, and it's all going to be on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So Emma had a chance again to talk to Jonathan Marchessault after practice yesterday and kind of pick his brain about this, kind of where the team is at. He's, new face on the team. He's working to get going. He's a veteran in the league. And I love what he had to say. This was such a Kevin Lankinen life coach moment for me. This is what Marchessault had to say. He said, I always have the same mentality. At 12 o'clock, it's a new day. And you wake up the next day, and what can you do to become better? And you got to ask yourself every day, have you gotten better? Usually it's something you've got to ask yourself. Have you done everything you're supposed to do to get ready? It's a 24-hour job being an athlete. So it's something that you have to ask those questions. That is how I process things. And I think what a great way to kind of work through this. And friends, this team is working through it. They are going through it right now. Practice, very physical, the tone, pretty serious. Like they know this is not a great start. They know that you've got to turn this around and pretty quickly. So there is some pressure on. What they do with that pressure is really going to determine what direction this team goes. And they've got to kind of get it together really quick, Emma, because tonight they're facing off against the Washington Capitals. What are some keys to this game for you when you look at these two teams and they match up?
Shut down Alex Ovechkin.
Come on.
And Dylan Strome while you're at it too. This is a team, a Washington team that has come out of the gate surprising a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they have, they've been off to a much hotter start, I think, than people expected. I think Ovechkin's got 7 goals already, just getting close to that Gretzky record. But I think that they're a team that has figured out, they've got like the perfect blend of the veteran leadership and stability with the young energy. And it's like finally clicking for them this year. And they've got a great coach in Spencer Carberry, like early Jack Adams favorite potentially. So I think that this is a team that, they play in a really tough division. They're right behind the Rangers and the Devils at the top of the Metro division, which not too shabby. So I think that they're a team that they're very offense heavy. They're a very offense heavy team. They've got, I want to say it's 46 goals through the first 11 games of the season, and that's good for 5th in the NHL. So, that's where, again, as a reminder, Nashville ranks 29th. So I think the Capitals are, they're a high octane offense. They're going to be scoring a lot of goals. And so Nashville needs to shut them down, while, yes, also trying to generate some chances of their own, because Nashville has, I will say Washington has below average or maybe average goaltending. It's, it's nothing to write home about. But, Nashville, again, they're going to need to rely on special teams, and they're going to need to create some chances, but they're also going to need to shut down the guys on the other end.
Yes. And that has to start early, because just recently the Capitals put up 5 goals in the first period against Columbus. So you want to talk about, man, I hate seeing this team go down by 2 goals early. Well, let me tell you what could feel worse, my friends.
Going down by 5 goals.
5 goals. So Nashville has to come out early. And we have said this, and we've said this. We talked about it earlier on this episode. Slow starts are going to kill this team. You cannot have a slow start against the Washington Capitals. You mentioned shutting them down offensively. If you go back and you look at a lot of the goals they score, they are moving the puck. It's a lot of cross ice passes. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on UC Saros, and the defense in front of him has to be ready to interrupt that kind of playmaking from the Capitals. This is going to be a challenge, I think, for the Predators. How helpful do you think it is that it's on the road? Also, just want to mention it's the first of a back-to-back. Emma, speculation on who's in net tonight?
Honestly, I don't know, because I'm like, at first you think, for all the reasons I just mentioned, it's like, okay, yeah, you want Saros in that situation. But then you remember that tomorrow they're playing Florida. So it's like
Stanley Cup champions.
Oh, okay. So I really don't know. I'm thinking maybe I'm leaning maybe Saros against Washington, Wedgwood against Florida.
Mhm.
I'm not entirely sure why. That's just kind of what my gut tells me. But I mean, I wouldn't really be surprised if it goes either way.
Yeah.
But again, I think being on the road is huge. I think this team needs to be on the road. It's hard when it's a back to back. That's not the ideal road situation you want to be in. But I do think, they're going into a game, into a building, like you said yesterday, and they're not trying to impress anyone. They don't have anything else to worry about. It's, people are now now we're at the point where they've lost so many games in, the type of fashion they did against LA, that people don't have very high expectations for this
Right.
Predators team. So it's maybe, use that to their advantage and be able to, kind of come out of the gate faster, catch some people off guard. It's just, yeah, I mean, it's not an easy schedule for them coming up, especially on this back to back.
Yeah, this back to back is a little bit tricky, but I do think there's something to be said for cleansing the geographical palette. Like, this
Yes.
may be just what Nashville needs on the road. Of course, taking on, like you said, kind of a hot Washington team, a good offensive team. Nashville's got their work cut out for them. We will, of course, be back tomorrow to recap tonight's game and preview tomorrow's game against the Florida Panthers. So make sure you tune in here for all of that on tomorrow's episode. Before we wrap up this one, though, Emma, let everyone know where they can find you and your work.
You can find me on social media at Emma_Lingen, and you can find my work at the Hockey News.
And you can find me on social media at AnnK_Mama on Ice. You can find my work with Penalty Box Radio. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back tomorrow with hopefully a really fun game recap. We'll see you then.